snowfall. It powders down onto the heads and shoulders of men, houses, and horses, whitens the teeth of picket fences, lathers the bristled faces of northern forests. It bows down to the outstretched arms of trees, tongues of children, the folded wings of sleeping owls. Confettis down past millions of living room, bedroom, office, train windows, seen and unseen, swirls down in great silence, eloquence, all pure, hushing, comforting presence. Welcome to the latest floating poetry broadcast, and thank you for leaning in to show 187, coming to you live from the soon snow-flaked, flurried, and frosted coast of Rhode Island. This is your poet and guiding spirit in the poetosphere, Colin Goedecke, a voice here and elsewhere for living our days more fully, more alively, more poetically. Last week's broadcast was how life comes together, the ways it comes together inside us or for us in our lives or for others, from meaningful callings to transporting or rewarding encounters to splendid relationships and big realizations. Those times where life generously and remarkably, or subtly and movingly, meets you, takes your hand or your heart, mind, or spirit. Those places where you experience or witness a harmonic convergence of elements, a great confluence of energies, maybe a stroke of good fortune, serendipity, or synchronicity. Well, this week, the gifts of snow and ice. Things that may have their practical downsides, but looked at through another lens, a poetic lens, offer myriad gifts of beauty, mystery, purity, wonder, and more. Gifts from nature that keep coming, that we can also comfortably count on as an example and symbol of nature's remarkable continuity. Well, given the too often too heavy emphasis or accent in the wider world right now on the negatives of things, like winter weather even, and storms not least, I felt a theme about the spirit joys and poetics of snow and ice in its manifold forms, and their manifold forms would be welcome. So I've created a broadcast of cultural commentary, poetry, anecdotes, and more to a place of differently seeing and aesthetically and spiritedly appreciating the redeeming elements of the snow and of the ice. Let's make our way together into them. From Watch Hill, Rhode Island, January 2021, above the winter sea. The wind is beyond wild tonight, howling and hurling itself against every outer surface, into every window crack and hollow crevice. I listen to it blow, with the ears of a long-time sailor at sea, lying wide-eyed in his berth in a brawling gale, back in Captain's courageous days. A black-robed Bedouin bedded down in his tent during a mad, obscuring sandstorm, a haboob where even the huddled camels are swept from sight. An Eskimo, alone in his igloo, sheltered from the Arctic blasts by layers of caribou fur and blue-white bricks of snow. An awakened man, blanketed under downy covers on a dark coast, body mindful of the unleashable power of the elements that surround and, now and ever, astound him. The wind. Also from here in Rhode Island this autumn of 2023 that we're at the later stretch of, plaid shirt weather. From Bangor to Burlington, Brimfield and Bristol, When autumn puts on its big show, and the down east, down home, and at home in their skin men of New England, and kissing northern cousins like my French-Canadian grandfather back in Berry and Trois-Rivières time, put on their signature woolen shirts, hale and hearty boots, weather-beaten hats, some with ear-flaps, thick socks, and apple-white smiles, to meet the crisp mornings, the brisk afternoons, frosty evenings, in the woods, the fields, lakes, coasts, and the wilds of their backyards. Always a sure sign fall is here, is happening, colorfully unfolding. A time of lively plaid shirt weather, happy New England flanneling. Gail Mazur, M-A-Z-U-R, ice. In the warming house, children lace their skates, bending, choked over their thick jackets. A Franklin stove keeps the place so cozy it's hard to imagine why anyone would leave. Clumping across the frozen beach to the river. December's always the same at Ware's Cove. The first sheer ice, black, then white, and deep until the city sends trucks of men with wooden barriers to put up the boys' hockey rink. An hour of skating after school, of trying wobbly figure eights, an hour of distances moved backwards without falling. Then twilight. The warming house steamy with girls pulling on boots, their chafed legs aching. Outside, the hockey players keep playing, slamming the round black puck until it's dark, until supper. At night, a shy girl comes to the cove with her father. Although there isn't music, they glide arm in arm onto the blurred surface together, braced like dancers. She thinks she'll never be so happy, for who else will find her graceful, find her perfect, skate with her in circles outside the emptied rink forever. Thank you, Gail Mazur, from Zeppo's First Wife, New and Selected Poems. Lovely. December 2016, walking through the Lawantaka Brook Reservation, Convent Station, New Jersey. A snow-white day. Snow-whitened world. Gold-leafed walk. Rain-dropped brook. Cloud-vapored breath. Michael Longley has this snow hole. Falling asleep in the snowscape of the big double bed, I wrap my hand around your hand until they catch fire, and the snow begins to melt, and we sink down and down. The fire and ourselves, how many feet below the morning? Should our fingers burn out at the bottom of the snow hole, smoke will escape up the glass chimney into the bedroom. Beautiful. Read that a long time ago, but I'd revisit that with us, and myself and you. Gregory Janakian. It starts with a D. D-J-N-A-N-I-K-I-A-N. When I first saw snow, Tarrytown, New York. Bing Crosby was singing White Christmas on the radio. We were staying at my aunt's house, waiting for papers. My father was looking for a job. We had trimmed the tree the night before. Sap had run on my fingers, and for the first time I was smelling pine wherever I went. Anais, my cousin, was upstairs in her room, listening to Danny and the Juniors. Hygo was playing Monopoly with Lucy, his sister. Buzzy, the boy next door, had eyes for her, and there was a rattle of dice, a shuffling of Boardwalk, Park Place, Marvin Gardens. There were red bows on the Christmas tree, red bows on the Christmas tree. It had snowed all night. My boot buckles were clinking like small bells as I thumped to the door and out onto the gray planks of the porch dusted with snow. The world was immaculate, new. Even the trees had changed color. And when I touched the snow on the railing, I didn't know what I had touched, ice or fire. I heard, I'm dreaming. I heard, at the hop, 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 oh baby. I heard B&O, and the train in my imagination was whistling through the Great Plains. And I was stepping off. I was falling deeply into America. Thank you, Gregory Janakian. When I first saw snow. And here's Billy Collins, Snow Day. Today we woke up to a revolution of snow, its white flag waving over everything. The landscape vanished, not a single mouse to punctuate the blankness, and beyond these windows, the government buildings smothered, schools and libraries buried, the post office lost under the noiseless drift, the paths of trains softly blocked, the world fallen under this falling. In a while, I will put on some boots and step out like someone walking in water, and the dog will porpoise through the drifts, and I will shake a laden branch, sending a cold shower down on us both. But for now, I am a willing prisoner in this house, a sympathizer with the anarchic cause of snow. I will make a pot of tea and listen to the plastic radio on the counter, as glad as anyone to hear the news that the Kitty Corner School is closed, the Ding Dong School closed, and the All Aboard Children's School closed, the Hi-Ho Nursery School closed, along with, some will be delighted to hear, the Toadstool School, the Little School, Little Sparrow's Nursery School, Little Stars Preschool, Peas and Carrots Day School, and Tom Thumb Child Center, all closed. And clap your hands, the Peanuts Play School. So this is where the children hide all day. These are the nests where they letter and draw, where they put on their bright miniature jackets, all darting and climbing and sliding, all but the few girls whispering by the fence. And now I am listening hard in the grandiose silence of the snow, trying to hear what those three girls are plotting, what riot is afoot, which small queen is about to be brought down. Thank you, Billy Collins. Snow Day from his collection, Sailing Alone Around the Room. Wonderful collection. Well, I'm curious, of course, what some of your snow days might have been like as a child, or as a student later, or as a parent, or as a teacher, or a worker, when snow shut everything down. Questions about the gifts of the snow and ice? I've got a few for you. Tell me what delights or enchants you about the snow and or about the ice? Delights or enchants you? What wonderful or beautiful experiences have you had in the snow as a child or a grown-up or both? On or near the ice? Some body or form of ice, maybe seeing icebergs or a glacier close up. I'll mention that a little later. Have you ever been in a blizzard? And what was it like? How did you feel? Where were you and what was happening? What about schussing down a slope as a skier? What good stories have you heard or read or seen on film set in a wonderfully snowy or icy landscape? I immediately think of Dr. Zhivago when Omar Sharif and Julie Christie returned to their long away from frozen house that has become a crystal palace, and they walk into it and they get a fire going and everything starts melting back to itself. It's really an incredible scene. You could find that, I think, on YouTube somewhere, the Crystal Palace scene. It's their home, but it looks like a palace. Where has a snow-covered or ice-coated or sheeted landscape dominated your vision or your consciousness or your feelings or your imaginings, your day or night dreams? And what about those of you in northern climates like me? What are you looking forward to this winter from the arrival of the snow, of the ice, paging the snowboarders, the Mount Everest climbers, the ice skaters, the ice fishermen, and all other ice and snow lovers? Things to muse on. Things I thought worth musing on. Always looking for interesting books that I have read or heard about or know about. And here's a few. This is from the Marginalian Review. How to Savor Winter, a century-old poetic recipe for bliss in the bleakest season. Bliss in the bleakest season, like that. This is Dallas Lore, L-O-R-E, Sharp, and his book was Winter. He lived from 1870 to 1929, former clergyman whom the great John Burroughs lauded as America's greatest nature writer at that time, captured this delicate dialogue between nature and human nature in his 1912 book, Winter. a lyrical effort to, quote, catch the spirit of the season, the large, free, strong, fierce, wild soul of winter, to channel the, quote, bitter boreal might that is wild and fierce and strong and free and large within us. So here's something he had to say in there. Winter within us means vitality and purpose and throbbing life. And without us in our fields and woods, it means widened prospect, the storm of battle, the holiness of peace, the poetry of silence and darkness and emptiness and death. The winter world is not dead. The cold is powerless to destroy. Life flees and hides and sleeps, only to waken again, forever stronger than death, fresher, fairer, sweeter for its long winter rest. I love the winter, and so do all children. Its bare fields, empty woods, flattened meadows, its ranging landscapes, its stirless silences, its tumult of storms, its crystal nights with stars new cut in the glittering sky, its challenged defiance and mighty wrath. I love its wild life, its birds and animals, the shifts they make to conquer death. And then, out of this winter watching, I love the gentleness that comes, the sympathy, the understanding. One gets very close to the heart of nature through such understanding. Wonderful. Dallas Lore Sharp, Winter. I'm pointing you there to that. Also from the Marginalian, another review. I've actually spoken of this, I think, one other time. Did a program on winter specifically. This is The Haunting Beauty of Snowflakes, Wilson Bentley's pioneering 19th century photomicroscopy of snow crystals. I've seen excerpts from it. It's quite marvelous. That's his book, Snowflakes in Photographs. And just a little note about that. Weeks before his 20th birthday, he mounted a new 1.5-inch microscope eyepiece to the lens of his enormous view camera with its accordion-like body fully extended. And on January 15th, 1880, he took his first photograph of a snowflake. Mesmerized by the beauty of the result, he transported his equipment to the unheated wooden shed behind the farmhouse and began recording his work in 2 separate sets of notebooks. For 46 winters to come, this slender, quiet boy would hold his breath over the microscope camera station and take more than 5,000 photographs of snow crystals, each a vanishing masterpiece with the delicacy of a flower and the mathematical precision of a honeycomb, a ghost of perfection melting onto the glass plate within seconds, a sublime metaphor for the ecstasy and impermanence of beauty, of life itself. He devoted his life to popularizing the uniqueness of snowflakes and helping others appreciate the ephemeral, quote, masterpiece of design that each one is, its singular and fleeting existence, never to be replicated, its beauty gone, quote, without leaving any record behind. Yeah, well, there's also a wonderful biography, by the way, about him called The Snowflake Man. I'd like to read that. Well, someone sent me a note about referencing penguins. It just so happened that I have this to share in the mix with you and that particular listener. This is the poet Ursula Le Guin on the poetry of penguins. It's from her book, The Compass Rose, Short Stories. She was a wonderful poet and writer. She was the poet who believed that, quote, science describes accurately from outside, poetry describes accurately from inside, and both celebrate what they describe. So here she's writing about the kinetic poetics of penguins. The beauty of that poetry is as unearthly as anything we shall ever find on earth. Imagine it, the ice, the scouring snow, the darkness, the ceaseless whine and scream of the wind. In that black desolation, a little band of poets crouches. They are starving. They will not eat for weeks. On the feet of each one, under the warm belly feathers, rests one large egg, thus preserved from the mortal touch of the ice. The poets cannot hear each other. They cannot see each other. They can only feel the other's warmth. That is their poetry. That is their art. Like all kinetic literatures, it is silent. Unlike other kinetic literatures, it is all but immobile, ineffably subtle. The ruffling of a feather, the shifting of a wing, the touch, the faint, warm touch of the one beside you. In unutterable, miserable black solitude, the affirmation: in absence, presence; in death, life. Wonderful. Thank you, Ursula Le Guin. Wish she was still around and alive, but she's left us so much. If you don't know about her, L-E and then G-U-I-N. Worth knowing about her, reading her work. A pioneering polar explorer on the resilience of the human spirit, Frederick Cook. This is also another review from the Marginalian. I love going there. So many good, well-written reviews, thoughtful reviews, interesting, and other links to things. Well, he lived from 1865 to 1940, composed a stunning study of contrast through a winter of different order in Through the First Antarctic Night, subtitled A Narrative of the Voyage of the Belgica, among newly discovered lands and over an unknown sea about the South Pole. Well, it's a forgotten masterpiece, kindred and in many ways superior to Thoreau's famed journals, for it chronicles in lyrical prose and with immense psychological insight the triumph of the human spirit over circumstances infinitely more trying than the tranquil contemplative life on the shores of Walden Pond, which of course are wonderful in their own way. But if we'd put him out in the Antarctic, I wonder what might have happened to him. I'm curious. But this fellow, who was American by birth, he joined the Belgian Antarctic expedition of 1897 as an official surgeon and anthropologist. There's a wonderful picture of him in his polar garb in the Marginalian. You could find that. And it became the first expedition to winter in the Antarctic that everybody thought was unsurvivable before that. And he recorded the whole experience, the soul-straining, superhuman experience of it in his journal. And he had a naturalist's curiosity and a poet's sensitivity to the changing appearances, especially of light and darkness, internal and external, and the eternal tug-of-war between our capacity for despair and for transcendence, between absolute desolation and almost unbearable beauty, as the crew surrendered their survival and their sanity to the unfeeling, icy grip of nature. So they go through incredible hardships. They managed to get through it, but there was this wonderful passage where they come to this sort of incredible theater of light in particular. And he wrote this: all this time I had been absorbed by the pyrotechnic-like displays of colors, but now I turned about to see my companions and the glory of the new sea of ice under the first light of the new day. Looking toward the sun, the fields of snow had a velvety aspect in pink. In the opposite direction, the pack was noticeably flushed with a soft lavender light. The whole scene changed in color with every direction taken by the eye, and everywhere the ice seemed veiled by a gauzy atmosphere in which the color appeared to rest. For several minutes my companions did not speak. Indeed, we could not at that time have found words with which to express the buoyant feeling of relief and the emotion of the new life which was sent coursing through our arteries by the hammer-like beats of our enfeebled hearts. Talk about being moved. Beautiful. Well, I remembered this next piece, edibly fitting poem wrapped around the polar and Arctic explorers' adventures. This is by T.R. Hummer, Shackleton's Biscuit, and of course, talking about the great explorer Ernest Shackleton. You probably have heard of or know a lot more about than just his name. Shackleton's Biscuit. Of oxen luncheon tongue, 600 pounds. Of Wiltshire bacon, 7/10 of a ton. 1,700 miles they walked, and it was pony meat that saved them. But one biscuit, this one of thousands, baked by Huntley and Palmer's, a special formulation fortified with milk protein, survives. The men long dead, and the ponies whose lives flew through bullet holes easily over the frozen labyrinth of the Fortuna Glacier, all gone to powder. Found a century later in the wrecked larder of one of Shackleton's way stations, it remains perfectly nutritious and sold at a Christie's auction is worth 1,000 some sterling. We had seen God in his splendors. We had reached the naked soul of man, he wrote, and this biscuit, said a Christie's director, is an object that really catches the imagination. Shackleton's I would have liked to have tasted one of those. Yeah, maybe with a good cup of tea, or maybe with some whiskey. This poem of mine crystallized one day deep in the Lewantica woods in Morristown, New Jersey, at the end of the winter, March 2017, like Crusoe's footsteps. Instead of seeing them in the sand, I see them in the snow, the sole sign of another presence, since a demi-fierce nor'easter cloaked this woodland days before. On a castaway trail, I explore between stretches of bare limbs, trunks, and hidden ground, my feet sinking and floating inches up and down through the frost whiteness, the frost coldness, as I trace ever farther into a late afternoon adventuring. Maybe you felt like Crusoe yourself out in the snowy landscape somewhere, and yours are the first prints, or maybe only the second prints. I lived for decades in New York City on Central Park West, right near the reservoir there, very lake-like, if you know it. And I'd walk there daily, in all seasons, all weathers, sometimes more than once a day. This was December of 1999, a soft time to walk. It's a soft time of day to walk around the water, a time when the ducks are resting, their snow-white breasts like low clouds, and the December light transmutes the bricks and stones of the buildings to gold. It's a soft time of day to walk when the mild air is musky with moist earth, and lovely leaves have fallen from the gowns of disrobing trees that ring the reservoir, a bowl of blue lake reflecting autumn under glass. It's a soft time to walk when all goes pink, even the seashell shape museum, and the lamplights wink on like a train of tethered fireflies, and the sun sinks to rest in a big oblong bath of cantaloupe-colored sky. Here's a love letter to winter. I think a little ice water's in order here. Yes, ice water for the occasion. A love letter to winter. Adam Gopnik's ardent case for the cold season's splendor and significance. This is from his wonderful book, Winter. 5 Windows on the Season. As his inquiry ranges from the works of Schubert, Pushkin, Hans Christian Andersen, and Goethe to the role of engineers, architects, and polar explorers in shaping our sensibility of the season. So here's what he said in part of it. A taste for winter, a love for winter vistas, a belief that they are as beautiful and seductive in their own way, and as essential to the human spirit and the human soul as any summer scene, is part of the modern condition. Wallace Stevens, in his poem The Snow Man, called this new feeling, quote, a mind of winter, and he identified it with our new acceptance of a world without illusions, our readiness to live in a world that might have meaning but that doesn't have God. A mind of winter, a mind for winter, not sensing the season as a loss of warmth and light, and with them hope of life and divinity, but ready to respond to it as a positive and even purifying presence of something else. The beautiful and peaceful, yes, but also the mysterious, the strange, the sublime is a modern taste. Thank you, Adam Gopnik. I agree with all of that. I do. It's partly why I was inspired to have this show this way for you and us and myself. By a listener among us, R.M., February 2022, Moon Smudge. Crystal smudged moon, once honeyed sweet, until a crusted snow down sent it outward bound into starlight, star night, frozen brilliance wrapping ribs, shoulders, holding rounded her-ness, coaxing blinded sweetness, refreshing feral mindness, snarled hair hopeless, dozy, cozy, safe enough, not so rough, brushed free of brawn into dawn. Moon Smudge, thank you for that poem. I was visiting Canadian friends some years back in their cottage on the great northern shield of Canada, and I was struck by the profound, the profundity, I guess I would say, and the density and the energies of the hills, the mountains, the boulders, the ledges, and ancient layers of rock and stone. And this was in Killarney, Northern Ontario, August of 2012, the White Hills of La Cloche. Once cloud-high mountains, shaped and worn from hundreds of millions of rainfalls, windfalls, frosts. Rounded now into high white hills, all anciently, minerally grained. Fine white hats of quartzite, brimmed and bowed in cedar and pine, whose towering crowns catch each sun and sunset, each first light, moonlight, waterlight. I'd love to go back there sometime. The White Hills of La Cloche. It was my first time also bouldering. I'd never done that before. It was marvelous. Kevin Kraft, for the climbers. Among the many lives you'll never lead, consider that of the wolverine, for whom avalanche is opportunity, who makes a festival of frozen marrow from the femur of an elk, who wears the crooked North Star like an amulet of teeth. In the game of which animal would you return as? Today I'm thinking snowshoe hare, a scuffle in the underbrush, one giant leap. You never see them coming and going, only the crosshairs of their having passed, ascending the ridge, lost or not lost in succession, forests giving way to open meadow where deep snow lingers and finally relents, uncovering acres of lily, glacier yellow, avalanche white, daylight restaking its earthly claim. Every season swallows someone, granite mountain with its blunderbuss gullies, tatouche a lash on the tongue, those climbers caught, if not unawares, then perfectly hapless, not thinking of riding that snowstorm to the summit, not thinking wolverine fever in the shivering blood, not thinking steelhead cutthroat rainbow or the languid river that will carry them out. Thank you, Kevin Kraft. Well, I was thinking certain animals, too, as I was putting things together for us, and maybe you have also associated them with snow and snowscapes, like the snow monkeys and the snow leopards, the snowshoe hare just mentioned, the snowy owls, and others. Well, here's one for you. This was at anchor off the Brothers, the two islands in the Frederick Sound, southeast Alaska, for Primal Forest Islands, 2009, for the humpback whales. Holding your breath. You hold your breath, have held your breath for 1,000 feet, 1,000 years down, through black and blue waters, blizzards, glaciers, barnacles, harpooners, still surviving, still returning to the surface. Blessing on the whales. Peggy Shoemaker, Shumaker, Exit Glacier. When we got close enough, we could hear rivers inside the ice heaving splits, the groaning of a ledge about to calve. Strewn in the moraine, fresh moose sign, tawny oblong pellets breaking up, sharp black shale. In one breath, ice and air. History, the record of breaking. Prophecy, the warning of what's yet to break. Out from under 4 stories of bone-crushing turquoise, retreating. Exit Glacier. Thank you, Peggy Shoemaker from Cairn. New and selected poems of hers. Well, aside from being a luxury liner a la the Titanic and crashing into one, icebergs can be beautiful and fascinating. I had great first-hand experiences with them in Alaska. And maybe I'll tell you what led up to this poem before I read it to you, this very short poem, that I had never been to Alaska before, and I brought a friend of mine, an English friend, actually a South African friend, but spent most of his life in England. And we were on a small fishing boat. We weren't fishing, but it was a 40-foot fishing boat called the Sue Ann. And I knew the captain, and he had invited me and a friend to have a wilderness journey, a 10-day wilderness journey in Southeast Alaska. So we had an amazing adventure. Every day, every moment was just incredible, even sleeping. But he sent us out one time in the Zodiac to, we needed ice because we didn't have any electricity really, except some engine powering some of the lights and things, but to have a refrigerator, so it was all ice kept. And he sent us out to chip off some icebergs for some ice to put in the chest. So we would go out in the Zodiac, we get the ice. There was all other adventure around that, but we did get the ice, and so we surprised the captain that night with a beautiful bottle of whiskey we had brought for to celebrate the adventure we were on. So this is the poem about that, using that ice, which is quite ancient, pure and ancient. Whiskey and ice. The tip of an iceberg sits in a bowl on the small table in the cabin. Pure and ancient ice, at least 100 times older than our 12-year-old single malt, that we chip into 3 glasses and sip slowly, reverently. Yes, I'll tell you another story about swimming with the icebergs, which I did every day. There were icebergs all around us, even at that time of year that we were there. And I actually swam and climbed up a bit on one in just my birthday suit. You can't stay in the water very long, so maybe it was a minute and a half I was in the water. But I got to that iceberg and then paddled back to the boat. That was very exciting. Had to do it. Okay, Marty Walsh, the snow's feet slip. Out from under it and down the mountain slope it comes, flat on its back, white skirt and billowy petticoats blowing back over its head, whip-lashing rickety pine sapling as it passes, bowling boulders left and right until it comes to a juddering, sudden, heart-thumping stop, just shy of the little village in the valley far below. Wow, love that, love the feeling of that. What about places where love flows in and round these elements, literally and or figuratively? This is Ruby Robinson's poem, Undress. There is an ash tree behind this house. You can see it from our bedroom window. If you stare at it for long enough, you'll see it drop a leaf. Stare at it now, you said, and notice the movement a leaf strips away from its branch, giving a twirl. Consider this. The ash tree unclothes itself octoberly. From beside our bed, fingering the curtain, observe the dark candles at the top of that tree, naked and alert, tending to the breeze. A sheet of ice between the rooftops, and this noiseless sky has turned the air inside out. Black veins of branches shake against the blue screen on which they hang. Small mammals are hibernating in pellets of warm air underground. But in spite of the cold, this ash tree does not shy from shrugging off its coat, sloping its nude shoulders to the night. So, you said, undo, unbutton, unclasp, slowly remove. Let down your hair, breathe out. Stand stark in this room until we remember how not to feel the chill. Stand at the window, lift your arms right up like a tree, yes, like that. Watch leaves drop. Beautiful. Thank you, Ruby Robinson. Undress. Here's a love poem of mine from New York City, August 2013. You, a river. For C.H. You and your everflow, your fresh water, free water, white water way of being. Your eddies and channels, bright ice sheets in winter, green currents in summer. You, carrier of secrets, sediments, dark and shining fish, nourisher of nature, smoother of stones, spirits, maker of canyons, deltas, lush, living banks and brooks, source to mouth, krenin erythron potamon, ever seaward through sunlit valleys, vast plains, deep mountainsides, constant yet never the same twice, moment to moment, mutable, yet always the same in your riverness, moment to moment. The Russian poet Anna Akhmatova, 1917, Snow. Upon the hard crest of a snowdrift we tread, and grown quiet, we walk on toward my house, white, enchanted. Our mood is too tender for talk, and sweeter than music, this dream now come true, the low boughs of the firs that sway as we brush them in passing, the slight silver clink of your spurs. Thank you, Anna Akhmatova. Spasiba. Beautiful. Nancy Willard. The snow arrives after long silence. The snow arrives after long silence from its high home where nothing leaves tracks or strains or keeps time. The sky it fell from, pale as oatmeal, bears up like sheep before shearing. The cat at my window watches amazed. So many feathers and no bird. All day the snow sets its table with clean linen, putting its house in order. The hungry deer walk on the risen loaves of snow. You can follow the broken hearts their hooves punch in its crust. Night after night the big plows rumble and bale it like dirty laundry and haul it to the Hudson. Now I scan the sky for snow and the cool cheek it offers me, and its body thinned into petals and the still caves where it sleeps. Thank you, Nancy Willard. The snow arrives after long silence. A new poet and poem to me. I always love introducing new people and poems to us. Well, I'm quite taken, as so many of you know, with so many facets of nature on the earth and above it, not least the sun, moon, and stars. And the moon, how often it has been a beautiful clearing and cold and pure element in winter. This is from Long Beach, New York, February 2020. The snow moon pours down its fairy tale light onto the sleeping garden dreaming of spring, onto the red-tiled head of the house and all the soft-blanketed house dwellers here, onto the faithful old dog, the bright-feathered hens, the rows of hats and wine glasses, the jars of healing herbs, into the veins and roots of all the plants growing wild and well here, through all the night darkness, into words of wonder and praise on a snow-moon whitened page. I felt Robert Frost was worth dialing in, and with his famous poem, and interesting, I thought, too, how he himself is a frost, Robert Frost, stopping by woods on a snowy evening. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near between the woods and frozen lake the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there's some mistake. The only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Thank you, Robert Frost, for that. Here's one of mine that took me back to feeling places from childhood. This was January of 2017 on Braidburn Way in Morristown, New Jersey. Snow blows. Snow blows about, white on gray, on this frosty country morning, slowly blanking out the landscape, dusting the air, the eyelashes, with fresh, wet crystal feathers, and tasting through the breath of my mittened and mufflered childhood winters of mauve mountains, distant robins, imagined ice palaces. Yes, the snow and ice as touchstones to things. Well, I'm often also inspired to compose poems from vivid experiences I have with various works of art, especially paintings, among others over the decades. Here's one from 2010 for Richard Cale's Winter Frolic collage. Black wool and blue wings. The black wool smelled of snowfrost and dusk that early century afternoon. The children wearing it floated like puffs and plumes of wood smoke over the frozen field, while the outspread wings, the ice-blue mottled wings of an outsized butterfly, fluttered in the far corners of their eyes, a bright mote of summer or future or wished-for color in the deep of winter. Love out to him for that beautiful collage. Richard Cale. On the old Dodge estate in Madison, New Jersey, at New Year's End in 2016, I had a rather magical, rather mythical encounter. And those can happen when you're open to them happening at certain times and places when you least expect it. And this was one of them. In the forest of here, in the heart of winter, I chanced to meet a mythical character, a woodland man, a burly-chested dweller in the forest of here, in stout sleeves and sash of weathered barks, a figure broad-belted with lichen, bright orange against the virgin snow, his tunic flecked red and rust with fallen leaves, tied with fine and wiry vines, clasped with a silver shaving of ice, the only cold note in his earth-toned body. We made no sounds, he or I, only gestured, each with a gentle nod, as we passed in opposite directions, he heading deeper into the woods and winter, me heading back toward home and blazing hearth. In the forest of here. Linda Pastan, P-A-S-T-A-N. I've read her pieces, various pieces often. This is one I did not know, but I thought fit perfectly for our theme. Snow Showers, a prothalamion, for Rachel and David. You are teaching my daughter the language of the stars, the whole sky glazed with them in freezing Wisconsin, and both your faces tilted up as though you were reading. We're trying to learn by heart the night's illuminated pages. I picture her putting her eye to a telescope and seeing her first close-up of what I still call the heavens. It must have been like seeing a man's face, yours, stubbled and cratered, an eyelash length away. She was a most inventive child. Now she gives the spin of reality to her made-up worlds, while you, fledgling astronomer, make real worlds with their long itineraries of light seem touched with fantasy. I want to tell you both how a moment ago there were snow showers here, though the sun is back now and the grass remains a frozen spiky green. But just a moment ago the sky seemed to release entire galaxies, and stars or star-shaped flakes, whatever that charged and bridal whiteness was, swarmed at the windows until the real and the imagined became one, a perfect marriage of opposites, like mine has been. Come spring, like yours. Thank you, Linda Pastan. Beautiful. Okay, well, now coming into our last sharings and musings for this week, for this time together. Annie Dillard on the winter solstice and how the snowy season awakens us to life. This is from her fine book, The Abundance, Narrative Essays Old and New. Today is the winter solstice. The planet tilts just so to its star, lists and holds, circling in a fixed tension between veering and longing, spins helpless, exalted, in and out of that fleet blazing touch. Last night, Orion vaulted and spread all over the sky, pagan and lunatic, his shoulder and knee on fire, his sword 3 suns at the ready. For what? The gaps are the spirit's one home, the altitudes and latitudes so dazzlingly spare and clean that the spirit can discover itself for the first time like a once blind man unbound. The gaps are the fissures between mountains and cells the wind lances through, the icy, narrowing fjords splitting the cliffs of mystery. Go up into the gaps. If you can find them, they shift and vanish too. Stalk the gaps. Squeak into a gap in the solid. Turn and unlock, more than a maple, a universe. This is how you spend this afternoon and tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. Spend the afternoon. You can't take it with you. Thank you, Annie Dillard. I'm going to read that book again. Nikia Leopold, Snow into Evening. The snow keeps telling its soft secrets, its white lies, hiding the frozen pond, printing a rabbit's track, erasing it. Buried snowdrops' breath is the only gentleness in January, not these drifts which rise voracious, white as bone. From the eaves, icicles grow a shrill world of their own. I tap the window, thin hand in its luxury of flesh, breaking the silence. I want a caravan to slow on the white road, even one wagon, red sides lacquered with yellow flowers, from its door, light, and a woman calling something lost to snow that later I might find. Thank you, Nikia Leopold. New to me. Snow into evening. Aga Shahid Ali, ALI, snowman. My ancestor, a man of Himalayan snow, came to Kashmir from Samarkand, carrying a bag of whale bones, heirlooms from sea funerals. His skeleton carved from glaciers, his breath Arctic. He froze women in his embrace. His wife thawed into stony water, her old age a clear evaporation. This heirloom, his skeleton under my skin, passed from son to grandson, generations of snowmen on my back. They tap every year on my window, their voices hushed to ice. No, they won't let me out of winter, and I've promised myself, even if I'm the last snowman, that I'll ride into spring on their melting shoulders. Wonderful. Aga Shahid Ali, the snowman from his collection, The Half-Inch Himalayas. I love that. Love discovering that. Must look into more of his work. Kenneth Rexroth, Falling Leaves and Early Snow. In the years to come, they will say, they fell like the leaves in the autumn of 1939. November has come to the forest, to the meadows where we picked the cyclamen. The year fades with the white frost on the brown sedge in the hazy meadows, where the deer tracks were black in the morning. Ice forms in the shadows. Disheveled maples hang over the water. Deep gold sunlight glistens on the shrunken stream. Somnolent trout move through pillars of brown and gold. The yellow maple leaves eddy above them, the glittering leaves of the cottonwood, the olive, velvety alder leaves, the scarlet dogwood leaves, most poignant of all. In the afternoon, thin blades of cloud move over the mountains. The storm clouds follow them. Fine rain falls without wind. The forest is filled with wet, resonant silence. When the rain pauses, the clouds cling to the cliffs and the waterfalls. In the evening, the wind changes. Snow falls in the sunset. We stand in the snowy twilight and watch the moon rise in a breach of cloud. Between the black pines lie narrow bands of moonlight, glimmering with floating snow. An owl cries in the sifting darkness. The moon has a sheen like a glacier. Wonderful. Thank you, Kenneth Rexroth. And next to last, from January 2019 on a lunar eclipse. Blood moon. The only thing warm tonight in the deep winter sky, and soon to occlude, the wolf moon, ice moon, old moon. During its dousing, a time for howling out our truth to the star-studded universe, so deeply listening, offering up wonder for these rare passages of our planetary nature, like generations of strangers, of ancestors before us, divining the light inside our shadow as it passes so silently, so mysteriously, red-bloodedly over the earth. Blood moon. And last for now, till we're together again here over these airwaves. This is from the Inside Passage of Southeast Alaska, 2009. Green clouds. Green clouds lie along the surface of our coastal passage. Clouds of conifers, of Sitka spruce and cedar, shore pine, hemlock, and alder, that change shape by decades instead of days, by generations of snow and light, that share the shelter of their deep-rooted solace with the water, the earth, the birds, and sometime passing men. Thank you again, friends, for leaning in, thinking and feeling it, for warmly enjoying the lovely snow and ice here together. If you share on this or other show links with friends or point them this way, thank you so much. All recommendations are always welcome. Likewise, your comments or contemplations from listening. Likewise, any contributions that you might like to make of thanks, of support for these weekly shows I create to illuminate and inspire you. If there's a theme you'd like to see a future broadcast on, email me, Colin@thepoetosphere.com. And what about your experience of this show? The gifts, of snow and ice. Love to hear. If you're going to make a donation, thank you so much. You can do that by Venmo to fivefold, FIVEFOLD, at pipeline.com, or by PayPal to the same email, or simply mail a check along to P.O. Box 1032, Westerly, Rhode Island, 02891, or you can donate through my site, thepoetorialist.com, at the Donate tab. And patrons, yes, sometimes can privately host or sponsor me as a working poet in residence in the U.S. or beyond to create a new flight of poetic art, of poetic illumination, and dedicate it to them. Email me to explore. Meanwhile, you can hear all the broadcasts online, on YouTube especially, on the Floating Poetry playlist there. You can also explore as a visitor or as a subscriber by the month or more the Oasis of Aliveness I'm guiding, the poetosphere.com. If you haven't heard of it yet or gone to explore it, there is an explore menu, a tasting menu, I guess we could call it. It's a source of opening and vitalizing micro-experiences, conversations, contemplations, and kindred spirits, a community of possibilitarians. I'm also making month-long and year-long subscriptions possible for the holidays for you, my listeners, at a much-reduced membership using the code GLADTIDINGS, all one word, whether for yourself or to uniquely give as a gift to someone. Meanwhile, I hope you'll lean in here soon again. Until then, dear listeners, I hope whether firsthand or at a remove, you enjoy, appreciate, and celebrate these gifts that nature keeps giving us, so faithfully gives us, among a wealth of other beautiful, natural, and unaltered elements and precious ornaments. Goodbye for now, and good spirits.